On our weekly celebration of architecture, we look at the Anglogold Building, situated in downtown Johannesburg. Now, architect Brian McKechnie respects the historical style of architecture, which still gets perfect, which gels perfectly with modern structures.
We're standing at the historic Anglo-American buildings at 44 and 45 Main Streets, which is situated in downtown Johannesburg. As you can see, this is a phenomenally regenerated area, which was Anglo's first head office in the city. It was built in 1937 and designed by the very prominent British firm of Burnett, Tate and Lorne. The building is typical of a monolithic type of structure, which was quite popular in the 30s, and this sort of huge massing of the building gave it a sense of presence and permanence and power. A lot of the elements of this building are very typical of classical architecture. In the sort of French tradition, it's got this building which is set back from the street, and obviously Main Street used to be a motor car street, so you would have stopped your motor car in front of Anglo. There's a sort of setback from the street where you catch your breath, and then you ascend this beautiful staircase up to this very impressive grand building. Although the elements of the building are typical of classical architecture, it's a very modern interpretation of the classical architecture. So the building is stripped down and it's quite sort of austere. And this was typical in the time, if you look at buildings like the League of Nations in Geneva, and also quite typical of Italian fascist architecture. The form of 45 Main is quite different than 44 in that it's quite a cavernous structure, and it sort of rises up to the sky. Looking across the street, we have 45 Main Street, which was Anglo's second head office and was constructed in the mid-1940s. The building is quite differently massed than 44 Main. 45 Main Street was designed by the same British architect, which is Burnett, Tate and Lorne. If you look at both of these buildings, the material usage is really quite beautiful and typical of opulent, stately buildings in the mid-1930s and 1940s. There's a lovely use of sandstone, and on that sandstone there's beautiful friezes carved. If you look at both 44 and 45, there's amazing pictures of sort of African wildlife and fauna and flora. So although the buildings have a very international flavor, they're given a strong local context through the use of these local South African icons on the buildings. Looking back at both 44 and 45 Main, the brasswork on the entrance doors is also extremely impressive and very typical of Art Deco architecture. There's really lovely decorations, and on 44, you've got this beautiful sort of entrance breeze lobby with amazing Art Deco glasswork. Typical Johannesburg's fashion, there's not really a huge relationship between 44 and 45, other than the entrances of the buildings are on much the same axis.